In today's video, I'm going to show you 10 reasons why you should start getting hyped for the release of Diablo 4. Unlike in Diablo 3, where you had to either party up from the main menu or invite players to join your session, in Diablo 4 you will be able to enjoy an open world experience. You will still be able to party up with friends, but you will most likely encounter other players as you venture from town to town, looking for dungeons and completing events. With the release of the beta, gameplay did have its moments where it made me question if this was actually going to work, but when all of the kinks that came along with the beta release kind of smoothed out, the game actually ran very well and felt really good in an open world concept. The beautiful thing about this open world is directly linked with how the storyline fits. What do I mean by that? In Diablo 3, you were expected to complete the campaign before really being able to venture out, whereas in Diablo 4, game director Louis Barriga says it best. The world is your oyster, meaning there is a ton of flexibility in terms of being able to divert from the storyline and find plenty of other interesting playable content without having to complete the full campaign. But don't worry, I'm going to be covering all of this new content throughout this video, so stay tuned. This game is going to have 5 different playable classes. The barbarian with his mastery of weapons, using devastating melee attacks along with war cries to boost allies and demoralize his enemies. The necromancer, who is a powerful spellcaster with the ability to raise armies from the dead to lay waste to their enemies. The sorcerer, also known as the wizard in Diablo 3, is an elemental spellcaster calling upon ice, fire, and thunder to eradicate her enemies. The rogue, which is a super interesting addition, is an agile and flexible character using both melee and ranged attacks, traps, and calls upon lethal shadow damage. And the new 5th and final class introduced in Diablo 4 is the druid, known as a savage shapeshifter. They possess the abilities to transform between a towering bear or a vicious werewolf when prompted, and his abilities to command the power of earth, wind, and storm to unleash nature's wrath to devastating effect. Each of the 5 classes will come with new unlockable passive abilities as they begin to increase their level. Both the necromancer and barbarian start out with some of their abilities unlocked, and as they begin to increase their level, new abilities become available, or what is known as a priority quest is offered, which upon completion, the passive ability is unlocked. The rogue offers specializations at level 15, 20, and 30, whereas the sorcerer offers enchantments at level 15 and 30. It is unclear what the druid's spirit boons are going to entail exactly, but we know that they will be some sort of a buff towards one of its shape-shifting animals. Basically, these class-specific unlocks are meant to provide cool new character features that make the game more dynamic. In addition, each class has a skill tree, which points can be allocated to basic skills, core skills, and so on and so forth as you continue to progress and distribute points. If you, however, don't like the skills you have chosen, for a fair price you can choose to respec the whole tree, or if you'd like to make minor adjustments, you can respec single skills that won't affect the rest of your skill tree, which make things very convenient when you're on the fly. The next cool new addition is something called Renown. You are presented with several locked rewards, and in order to unlock them, a specific amount of Renown points must be collected through discovering new areas, waypoints, defeating strongholds, completing side quests and dungeons, and finding altars of Lilith. Some will have a higher value of Renown points than others, but with a higher value usually means greater difficulty to complete. As you collect more Renown, the rewards you receive get better and better. But there's more to it than just that. Completing side quests give you different caches that can help you progress within the game. Caches can range from item resources to gems, salvage materials, and murmuring obels used at the Purveyor of Curiosities. When you find altars of Lilith, they will give you and all of your characters that you have on this realm a bonus attribute like dexterity, strength, or increase the total amount of murmuring obels which you can hold at any given time. Considering there's a decent amount of altars, when they all add up, it could give you the competitive edge when doing, say, nightmare dungeons or PvP. More on this later. When you come across a dungeon, when you look on the map, if you hover over it, you will notice the reward for completion will be what is called an aspect, with the definition of what this aspect does, followed by a class requirement specification in red. You'll have to complete the dungeon quest to unlock the aspect. In order to use them, you'll need to use what's called the Codex of Power. The Codex of Power contains defense, offense, resource, utility, and mobility aspects, which you can sort through by choosing the corresponding category or even selecting the Show My Class Only feature to see what you can actually use for your character. These aspects are, however, not passive abilities. They have to be, well, they are to some extent, but they have to be placed into an item at the occultist using the Codex of Power. Only certain types of equipment can have certain aspects imprinted into them with the Codex of Power. When you are hovering over an aspect, you'll see beside allowed item types, the required piece of armor needed to imprint that aspect into it. Once you do imprint an item, it becomes imbued with that aspect and is considered a legendary item now. Because I think the occultist is the most important NPC, I wanted to dive deeper into his features as well as what the other NPCs will have to offer. The occultist can also use regular aspects to imprint into items separate from aspects of the Codex of Power. If you'll notice, legendary items have a star with the description of a special ability on them. This is what's considered to be the aspect part. By destroying the legendary piece, it creates the aspect, where you can then take that and then imprint it into a new piece of equipment, creating an incredibly strong piece of gear, whereas previously maybe it was just mediocre. Remember, earlier I mentioned nightmare dungeons. Well, as you progress through Diablo IV and begin to collect what's called sigil powder, you'll be able to craft nightmare sigils. These nightmare sigils are essentially dungeons that are equivalent to what rifts were in Diablo 3. There are lower and higher tiers within sacred and ancestral, depending on the difficulty of the dungeon that you're trying to access. An occultist is also able to replace an unwanted affix with a new one as many times as you'd like, provided you have the resources. The Purveyor of Curiosities is a vendor that accepts the currency known as Murmuring Obols to purchase an item with randomly generated affixes, as well as selling Whispering Keys. More on this soon. The Alchemist is where you'll be able to craft potions, as well as unique elixirs using herbs. You'll also have the ability to create herbs through combining various herbs together to make stronger elixirs. There is, however, a final feature which unfortunately was not unlocked during the beta, so we're going to have to wait and see what that is. From looking at the pre-order content alone, we know that Blizzard is introducing mounts into Diablo 4. Once you reach far enough into the storyline of Diablo 4, you'll receive a priority quest called Mounts Donnin's Favor, which will allow you to get your first steed from the stable master. It's likely you'll be able to buy different steeds from vendors, but it's my speculation that you'll also be able to earn them through other means. The fact that they've included a Barding's tab suggests we'll be able to equip our mounts with body armor. I won't go into great detail with the blacksmith, but he'll still just salvage gear for materials and repair gear, but he can also upgrade weapons and armor up to 3 times, boosting their stats a decent amount, which does help with the endgame progression. Like the blacksmith, the jeweler has the ability to upgrade rings and amulets up to 3 times, giving you a slight increase in stats. Aside from upgrading gems, the jeweler has the ability to remove stones from items and add sockets to items. If you'll notice, however, in order to add a socket to an item, you'll need a special item called the Scattered Prism, which can only be obtained from a world boss. The world boss is a part of a world event where any players can freely join by entering the designated area of the sanctuary where the boss spawns. The boss is an insanely gigantic and powerful creature that will destroy any player within its path, so it's definitely recommended that lots of players group up, have good gear, and defeat the creature together. If you do manage to kill it within the allotted time, you'll get a crap ton of loot consisting of legendary items and what is called a single scattered prism, which we said can be used to insert a socket into an item at the jeweler. These boss fights are incredibly fun, and I can't wait to see what's in store for us with the full game release. Next, I want to show you the exciting new customization control you'll have. Unlike Diablo 3, you will have a ton more control over the customization of your character. You'll be able to do more than just select the sex and name in Diablo 4. For players on the lazier side, such as myself, you'll have 8 preset characters available to choose from, to which you can then begin to do any additional customizations. You will be able to customize the variations of your face, things like skin color, eye color, hairstyle, makeup, jewelry, and markings. But what's really cool is that you will always be able to change the appearance of your makeup, jewelry, and markings by accessing the wardrobe in town. In addition to this, you'll also be able to set the appearance of all of your gear you wear so that no matter what item you're using, the cosmetic will automatically switch to the appearance you set in your wardrobe. You'll be able to toggle between up to 4 preset outfits to switch between depending on the flavor of that day. They have quite a few options for the cosmetics, most of which are locked. In order to access the locked cosmetics, you'll need to complete challenges, which you can see in the challenge book. Once you complete the required task, the item cosmetic will then unlock. The same goes for unlocking banners, emblems, and titles for your characters to display when other players choose to inspect you. You will also have a spin wheel for quick access to use emotes, potions, other miscellaneous features like trading with players or teleporting back to the entrance of a dungeon, and PvP. There will be more on this in just a minute. The final customizable feature includes creating or joining a clan, which is just a cool way to group up with all your friends or create a community you can all be a part of, and it allows you to see one another's progress through the newsfeed. In Diablo 4, I noticed they have a ton of different events throughout the map, which means you'll have an increased amount of opportunity for loot drops and acquiring murmuring obols used at the Purveyor of Curiosities to purchase potentially good gear. Events will trigger different chests upon completion, and some chests you will also simply stumble into while exploring. You can expect to find greater radiant chests, silent chests, cursed chests, and cursed shrines. The silent chest, however, is a unique chest, as you will need to use murmuring obols at the Purveyor of Curiosities to purchase whispering keys in order to unlock and open these chests. They implemented quite a bit of diversity with the variety of chests and the means to accessing them to create a less monotonous and more fun experience in Diablo 4. Now, I already told you about world bosses, but I think you're going to especially like this one. In Diablo 4, they reintroduced the Butcher as an encounterable creature when in dungeons. So as long as you are in a dungeon, you have the chance to run into the infamous flesh-carving Butcher. You should be concerned if you do manage to stumble into him because he is actually pretty strong. So if you're not geared up, you can expect to get curb stomped. Literally. You'll notice that he doesn't have a fixed level, and that he actually scales in level to match the level of your character as to not create too much of an unfair advantage. If you do manage to kill him, you can expect to get a chance at some decent loot drops consisting of legendaries and rares. I managed to run into a few of these guys during my playthrough in the beta, and it was a ton of fun. Just don't die, because once you do, the Butcher will disappear from the dungeon and you'll lose that opportunity to get his loot. Now, PvP. So will the devs deliver with the release of Diablo 4? The answer is yes. There will be different areas throughout the sanctuary called Fields of Hatred. Any players within this region are fair game to kill, and just the same, you can be killed by them. There will be different objectives and bosses in these Fields of Hatred that might lure you to take the chance and enter, or maybe you just want to kill some of these other players. Either way, all of these result in gathering shards of hatred when completing quests, killing bosses and or players, which can be used at the PvP vendors after converting them at what's called a Vessel of Hatred. If you happen to die before converting your shards of hatred at the vessel, you will lose them all. So I guess you can say PvP has this cool kind of dichotomy of risk versus reward that's going to be exhilarating, and I'm definitely going to be all about hitting that dopamine drip that it's going to give. In addition, I wanted to leave you with a glimpse into the paragon system. The old system was grounded on core, offense, defense, and utilities, which used to enhance the build of your character. But the new paragon system in Diablo 4 is going to be highly intertwined with the skills used for a character's class. There's going to be many options to choose from, allowing for a wide variety of customization and a very large paragon board that provides a great deal of depth, which will keep you pushing for endgame. By rotating the board, you can also choose to switch your focus on attributing points to a different core function, like strength or willpower, for example. And by doing so, you'll gain access to using different boons and different glyphs on your new pathway. If you guys aren't following my channel, can you please do me a solid and make sure you hit the subscribe button, show me some love for my efforts that brought you this video. Keep your eyes out for more of my content to come. Diablo 4 is going to be so good. So good. That's it for now. I'm out. Cut it. Peace.